Good morning and welcome to Daily Business News. My name is Cindy Huang, and today we have a special news program to celebrate the 17th anniversary of WTO, the World Trade Organization. WTO started in 1995, replacing the General Agreements on Tariffs and Trade, which ended with the Uruguay round. So, why was GATT replaced? GATT only applied to trading with merchandise goods, whereas the WTO covers that and trade in services and intellectual capital. The WTO agreements are mostly multilateral, meaning multiple countries working together on an issue. The WTO also settled disputes faster and more autocratically compared to the GATT system, decreasing the likeliness of conflicts between members' countries. Now we understand how the WTO came about, but who are the members of this international organization? There are currently 155 members in the World Trade Organization, 123 of which participated in the Uruguay round in founding the organization. To give you a sense of the scope of the WTO, we have invited here today renowned WTO Deputy Director Rufus Yerxa to speak with us. Mr. Yerxa, welcome to Daily Business News.
I'm glad to be here. Well, to start off, just to give you an idea of the membership in the WTO, consider this: all the major economic power, such as the US, European Union, China, and Russia are all part of WTO.
Wow, it seems difficult to find a country that's not part of the WTO.
Well, believe it or not, there are still many countries who are not the members of our organization yet. Our selection process is very thorough, and we only accept those who show their dedication to increasing international trade and to improve our organization. Of course, applicants must show something unique to our table.
And now we actually have Mr. Zhang outside the Center William Rappert, WTO's headquarters in Geneva. Mr. Zhang, tell us what's going on there.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm here outside of Center William Rappert, and the Russia representative will be coming here shortly. It is well known that the accession process could be extremely grueling. There are strict guidelines to abide by and parties to appease. Of course, China was not the only country to experience such slow negotiation. Let us hear a story from Russia. Please.
We are disappointed to see ourselves being excluded in the world's largest trade organization, especially after China was accepted in 2001.
The point of contention had been our problematic relationship with Georgia, which as the member of WTO holds the veto right to reject the application from any other country. It was a relief to see things worked out between us after the mediation of Switzerland.
Well, I'm glad that you resolved your problem so diplomatically. Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome, Wilson.
Now let's ask the Chinese representative about how China joined the WTO. Ms. Li, what do you have to say?
Actually, we have wanted to join GATT since 1986.
However, there were some issues that stood in the way of our accession. Because we were protective of our domestic market, our relationship with the United States wasn't good, and it worsened after the Chinese embassy in Yugoslavia was bombed by the NATO. However, the United States decided to compromise after realizing how big our market is and how much of a reduced trade deficit with us. The cooperation of the United States facilitated the accession process, and we finally got to join the World Trade Organization.
Thank you for coming, Ms. Li.
There was no problem.
Becoming a member sure takes a long time, but it is definitely worth it. Canada has been part of the WTO since its inception. As one of the major economic power, Canada is now playing an increasingly important role in the organization. Here we have the Canadian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jane Baird, in our studio to talk about Canada's involvement with the WTO. Nice to talk to you.
My pleasure.
Canada holds a permanent spot in the Ministerial Conference, which is the main decision-making body of the WTO. Minister, how has Canada's membership in the conference contributed to the overall development of the organization?
Well, as you mentioned, the membership of the Ministerial Conference represents our power to make decisions.
When a country applies for accession into the organization, we have the right to vote in favor or against the applicant, depending on whether the membership of the applicant is all of Canada's best interests, as well as the global market. Canada can also voice its opinion during proposed draftings of major free trade agreements. For example, Canada was one of the major advocates for the signing of GATT.
And what was the recent contribution by Canada in the ministerial conference?
In the recent conference, which was held in Geneva, Switzerland, my respectable colleagues, Minister of International Trade, Ed Fast, made a strongly worded pledge committed to eliminate trade barriers in goods and services and prevent implementation of any measures against the guideline of WTO.
As we all know that Canada has been one of the major advocates of the negotiation of Doha round, and it has voiced support for negotiation of developing countries into the international trading system. Tell us specifically about the areas Canada focused on.
The pivotal focus of Canada is on the agriculture industry. We aim to eliminate all trade barriers in agriculture and improve market access. In the service sector, we encourage foreign companies to open their market for Canadian service firms because of our saturated domestic market.
Is there any other major contribution by Canada that you would like to mention?
Certainly, in terms of financial contribution, Canada donated $700,000 to the Doha Development Agenda Global Trust Fund back in 2009.
Last year, Canada pledged to make a total donation of 7.5 million Canadian dollars to the organization over the next 5 years. Canada has also acted as the mediator in several occasions. For example, in May 2012, Canada, as one of the major members on the ruling panel, decided to side with the United States over China's imposition of countervailing duties on electrical steels and settled the dispute between the two countries.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Alright, next we have the expert in international business, Enrique. Welcome to our show.
I'm glad to be here, Cindy.
So Enrique, mind telling us about international importance of the WTO?
Sure, Cindy, I would never mind at all. Well, the World Trade Organization is known for many of the things as mentioned earlier, but what sets them apart from other organizations is their international importance.
Oh, is that so?
Yes, in fact, the World Trade Organization is involved in many aspects of trade, but the top 10 priorities are:
cut the living costs and raise living standards, settle disputes and reduce trade tensions, stimulate economic growth and development, cut the cost of doing business internationally, encourage good governance, help countries develop, give the weak a stronger voice, support the environment and health, contribute to peace and stability, and by being effective without hitting the headlines.
Wow, so there are the top reasons why WTO is such an important organization in the world. If you had the choice between these 10 points, what would be the top 3 reasons why WTO is so important in the world?
Wonderful question, Cindy. If I had to choose 3 of the 10 points, I would have chosen cutting the living costs and raising living standards, settling disputes and reducing trade tensions all over the world, and finally, cutting the cost of international business.
Really? Could you explain these 3 issues more thoroughly?
Well, of course, the World Trade Organization cuts the living costs and raises living standards by lowering trade barriers throughout negotiation. The results of this are reduced costs of production, reduced prices of finished goods and services, more choice, and ultimately a lower cost of living. The World Trade Organization also raises living standards by increasing incomes of an average of family of 4.
Wow, that's wonderful. What about settling disputes and reducing trade tensions?
Well, for settling disputes and reducing trade tensions, the World Trade Organization settles these issues in 2 ways. One of which is by talking and negotiating rules that are acceptable to both countries, whereas the other way is by settling disputes about whether countries are playing by those agreed rules. In addition, the WTO was fundamentally formed in order to settle disputes within respective countries.
Wow, that's something new. Finally, what about cutting the cost of doing business internationally?
Well, the WTO cuts the cost of doing business internationally using 6 different methods. Firstly, the World Trade Organization would reduce the costs of cross-border trade. Secondly, they would perform standardizations of customs procedure. Thirdly, they would remove the red tape and government intervention in the foreign country. Furthermore, they would have centralized databases of information. By achieving all this would mean less paperwork, and finally, they would simplify customs clearance.
Terrific! Well, thank you, Enrique, for your time. It's been a pleasure having you here.
It's been my pleasure.
Now we will go live on location with Wilson at the WTO conference.
Thank you. I'm outside of the conference meeting right now. Let's go and see.